Hello, and welcome to another fully awesome Team Snow video on things to do in Les Arcs during the summer months. As you may have gathered from the opening shot, I am once again having problems with the sound. This time, however, it's both the fault of my cheap audio-visual equipment and that of the operator, me. In the excitement of preparing for a full day's mountain biking, I entirely forgot to bring my microphone. This instantly became a moot point as my camcorder decided it hadn't bothered charging in the least, hence the Marcel Marceau opening filmed on my tiny, what you might call, action camera. Anyway, it's the first time ever we went mountain biking on an actual mountain. In the summer, the ski lifts are slightly modified and reopened for cyclists so they can easily ascend the peaks before hammering down the gravelly, dirty tracks. We thought this was a great idea, so we rented some cheap mountain bikes in Borg, packed some snacks and took the funicular up to Arc 1600. As I've never really done off-road riding, we started with a bit of uphill along the golf piste from Arc 1600 to Arc 1800. The incline was pretty manageable, albeit a slight initial shock to the system after months of not cycling, but it was perfectly fine. Upon reaching Arc 1800, we actually had climbed a bit too high, so needed to descend a short distance to the Transarc gondola. That's where the fun began. Unfortunately, it may be necessary to italicise or at least add quotation marks to the word fun. So, a bit of explanation. The biking pistes in Les Arcs are split into a number of different categories. Descent, or downhill, exclusively for mountain biking. Enduro, which involves some uphill and takes place on mixed-use tracks, trails and roads. The liaisons, which simply connect the different trails. And cross-country runs, which are pretty balanced in the amount of ascent and descent that you're expected to do. What goes up must come down. All these trails are classified in a similar manner to ski runs, with green pistes being the easiest and black pistes being the hardest. So, that brief explanation over, this is what I found. Going downhill on off-road tracks whilst riding a mountain bike can be fully terrifying. I was not prepared for how technical even supposedly simple descents actually were. When we first arrived at Arc 1800, the first view we had of the Arc 1800 liaison piste, classified blue for intermediate, was it dropping precipitously away into some foreboding looking woodland. That I was not expecting. Even when we'd reached the Col de la Chale at the top of the Transarc, the easiest downhill piste on the map, Tranx, which is classified green, seemed prohibitively difficult and not entirely unfrightening. Now, there are many reasons why I may have found downhill mountain biking nigh on impossible. Firstly, I've not really ridden a bike on anything other than tarmac or tracks which are well maintained and designed for cycling since I was a child. That probably didn't help. Secondly, we had the bare minimum amount of specialist gear. We had the cheapest hardtail bike we could rent, our standard on-road helmets, fingerless cycling gloves, and nothing else of note. Whereas, we may have felt less vincible, which I assume is the opposite of invincible, if we had back protectors, full face helmets, knee guards, elbow pads, and all the such like. We didn't have those things. I feel like we would have benefited from some time practicing on very gentle downhill tracks, although I've literally no idea where they might exist. So we tried Tranx and failed. Then we went to the Lake District cross-country piste in the hope that, despite it being designated a red or difficult piste, that the difficulty would be related to it being an uphill ride as well as a downhill ride. So the uphill was making it difficult, essentially. Unfortunately, it was instantly clear that there would be downhill, lots of scary downhill. So we therefore roughly followed some unmarked tracks down to Arc 2000 before unsuccessfully attempting to ride the Canal piste, which is a blue enduro track. To be honest, I found downhill cycling probably so difficult because I was not accustomed to the bike wheels sliding around on the loose gravel and rocks. It was definitely easier and more exhilarating when you stopped applying the brakes and began to accept that bouncing and sliding would inevitably occur. Essentially, you just need to point and shoot, embracing the mystery of staying upright. The critical downside of this is the inevitable acceleration brought about by heading constantly downhill. I was therefore always feathering the back brake, which to be honest wasn't the best to start with, and at some points coming to a complete stop for relatively innocuous obstacles. There was certainly a mental element too, which I like to call bottling it. But I was very unwilling to spend even a small portion of my day sliding downhill across rocks with a bike between my legs. I think the most annoying thing was, mountain biking is clearly awesome. In those brief moments where the brakes are off and you're skipping upright across the tracks in the beautiful sunny mountains, it feels genuinely wonderful and exhilarating. Having even a modicum of practice, control, and perhaps a few more protective garments could easily transform the anticipation of calamity that I felt into a feeling of freedom and happiness. Anywho, we got to Arc 2000, then we took the road down a short distance and headed onto Route 66, which had been described as an easy descent encompassing lots of wide tracks and quiet roads. Actually, it soon dipped off into the trees at a slightly unconscionable incline, so we continued down the wider track instead. Then our route was impeded by serious excavator-intensive earth moving, so we had to walk through the woods with bikes. Note for those people considering trail walking with bicycles, it's not a thing, and for good reason. Eventually we were able to ride on a track again, and reached Villa Roger. Thereafter we enjoyed some small, fast, twisty, tarmac covered roads, heading back to Bourg Saint-Maurice. Because A, it wasn't enough, and B, we're stupid. We then headed towards M down the designated piste cyclable that runs adjacent to the Isère River. This is a route we've taken many times before, and a lovely tree-lined, well-surfaced ride. After a short while we realised we were a bit tired, so turned back. All in all, by the time we'd reached Bourg Saint-Maurice again, we were pretty shattered. We'd travelled all the way down from the Col de la Chale, halfway to M, and then finished back at the bike rental shop in Bourg Saint-Maurice, and in doing so had travelled over 50 kilometres, with less than half of it constituting the original descent from 2,500 metres at the Col to 800 metres in Bourg. Did I mention it was also really hot? Well, that. So, to surmise, although theoretically I really enjoy mountain biking, on this occasion it was predominantly unpleasant, causing great discomfort in my arms, hands and shoulders. Mostly through constant braking, but also through the emotional tension. In hindsight, I don't really enjoy cycling downhill on a road bike or when riding a motorbike, so I'm not sure why I assumed mountain biking would be immediately any different. The mountains are still gorgeous, and it's interesting to see the piste devoid of snow. Apparently there really is a golf course in Arc 1800, and it's not just an elaborate ruse. But still, I'm not entirely sure that mountain biking is my thing. At least not yet.